Today on Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania, we're taking a look at the X-Plus Diamond Reissue 30cm Mothra larva from the 1961 film Mothra. This figure was originally released in 2010, which seems to be a theme with all these reissues. They all seem to be from 2010 for some reason. I believe there was another variation re-released in Japan at some point, and then this version came out in 2014. Pretty much the story with most of at least this first wave of Diamond reissue figures. And, as I've said with most of these X-Plus videos, this is a figure I got to add to my Destroy All Monsters lineup. Unfortunately, the Mothra larva from 1961 does not look like the 1964 or 1968 versions. It's a very different looking Mothra larva, but this is the one that's going to be in my collection for the time being until X-Plus decides to make a 30cm Mothra that more fits that movie. So let's go ahead and kick off this review before this Mothra decides to go into a cocoon and I have to review the adult form instead. And as I mentioned before, this Mothra is a very different color than the ones that came later. The later Mothras were more of a deep brown throughout. This one I like to call the chocolate chip cookie version because, well, that's what it reminds me of. Instead of being a very dark brown, we do get kind of that same shade here at the very bottom of Mothra, but it fades up into this lighter brown, and then we have these black dots throughout, which are not present later. Each of the black dots also does kind of have a spot of brown paint around it, darker brown paint around it. And looking at this, I love the overall sculpt of the piece. We have all the different individual segments of Mothra's body, and there's also little cracks throughout, giving it a very organic feel that is absolutely fantastic. The head on this figure is unique because it's so much just a part of the body. We do get some heavy wrinkles here, kind of what would have been the articulation point of the suit itself, or the marionette, or whatever this thing was. The head has some very deep indentations going across the forehead, and then the deep set eyes that are kind of a lightish blue or gray set in there. Some of the least vibrant eyes of any X-Plus I've ever owned, but it fits the character. We get the little beak up here at the front, which is done in a nice black, with some very cool kind of texturing done to it. And in a twist for X-Plus, it's actually articulated, and you can open up the mouth to have Mothra look like it's about to shoot out its silk. We get the little horns coming out here at the bottom, have a nice bone white that fade into the brown of the rest of the body. Some good kind of rough texture here at the lower part. We get the little legs coming up out of the front with the little hairy side pieces that are very nicely detailed. Those hairy side pieces continue down the rest of the body. Then we have that kind of more smooth texture across the bottom, plus a smooth out section for some copyright info. You're not really going to be looking at the bottom of this figure too much, I don't think, but it is nice they included some texture here. And then here at the back, we have the little three-pronged claw-looking piece tipping off Mothra's body. Now, while Mothra does have a very large seam here between the head and the rest of the body, this comes in one piece. You don't have to do any additional assembly or anything like that like you do in a lot of other X-Plus figures. For a size comparison, here's Mothra next to Godzilla 1968. And Mothra comes up to about Godzilla's knees. It's appropriate for the character. Very, very short kaiju, but it does look a little funny when trying to compare the two. This Mothra larva, to me, feels a lot like the minifigure does. It's a piece that isn't gonna wow you completely. There's not a whole lot going on here, but what is going on here is very well done. The paint job is very nice, very movie accurate. The sculpting is very detailed. It's just, you basically have a log.
It's long, it's better than that, it's good.
The pose is fairly neutral. The little bit of articulation is a nice touch, and the detail is on point like every other X-Plus I've ever picked up. But there's not tons and tons here to get super excited about looking at the piece. If you're a Mothra fan, definitely a cool one to pick up, but I really do hope eventually we do get a repaint or a retool, redo, whatever, to give us the 1964 or 1968 version of the Mothra larva. I think that's much needed in the X-Plus 30cm line. The Mothra larva does exist in the 25cm line, but I'm not collecting the 25cm line, damn it. But Mothra gets a recommend. Nothing fancy, nothing spectacular, but a recommend. Make sure you follow me on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been our Outside the Box Reviews, Giant Monster Mania. Stay tuned for more to come.